My wife's lover crashed the party. What he did in front of me was unbelievable. Laughter enveloped the ballroom, but all Jonathan could hear were the distant echoes of his racing thoughts. The strings of the quartet draped a serene layer over the night, yet beneath its seductive melodies crumbled his world. He stood anchored on the periphery, a polished stone gray against a vibrant canvas sold as the night of charity and celebration. Sarah, radiant in her evening gown, moved like sunlight through distrusting clouds, bright, untouchable, and breathtakingly unaware of the ruin lurking just beyond the dance floor. Watching her, his Sarah, twirl with Tyler Kane, sent a pang crashing through his heart that felt like jagged glass lodged deep within. With loose hair that fell over her shoulders and a smile lighting up her face, she became the embodiment of life and laughter. Yet at that moment, she was not his. She was a tapestry, now woven with someone else's thread. The flawless image of her happiness became a fleeting mirage, and he grappled with a sense of betrayal, so profound it tainted the very air he breathed. The laughter surrounding him felt distant. It wrapped around Jonathan like a heavy fog, obscuring clarity as he navigated through a melange of concern and rage. Was Tyler charming her, enticing her? There was nothing innocent about the warmth of their exchanged smiles. Disquiet rolled in his stomach as he thought of their past encounters, the fleeting moments when Sarah's eyes lingered too long on Tyler during televised games, a thirst for excitement he had mistakenly assumed was innocent admiration. "Jonathan, there you are." A voice broke through his chaos. A close colleague, Greg, placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You look like you've seen a ghost. What's bothering you?" "Nothing really," he replied, forcing a laugh that felt foreign and hollow in his throat. "Just taking it all in." He gestured vaguely towards the dance floor, where Sarah was now laughing, free, carefree, as she moved against Tyler's athletic frame. "Nice-looking lady, huh?" Greg chuckled, slapping Jonathan on the back. "You got yourself a real catch. Aren't you glad to see her having fun? A night off from all the stress, right?" Jonathan's response faltered, his mouth suddenly dry. The chuckle that once felt natural slipped into a mirthless exhale, choked by the realization that fun ebbed under the guise of something far more perilous. Of course, he finally managed, but the words tasted stale. If only he could believe he was watching a simple dance, if only he could feel ease in her directions. As the music played on, every beat twisted in Jonathan's chest like a knife, burrowing into the familial warmth he had thought was impenetrable. He had always prided himself on being the protector of his family, the rock who was unwavering. But now he felt like a spectator in his own marriage, paralyzed by silent fury and fear. The shadows he felt were not mere illusions. They were real, tangible, and about to collapse upon him. With resolute breaths, Jonathan broke free from Greg's hold and moved closer to the dance floor. He stepped forward in an attempt to bridge the gap, but every step felt heavier than the last, each dragging down the weight of uncertainty. He could see the laughter still spilling from Sarah's lips, her body swaying with Tyler's in rhythmic abandon. Desperate to bid the shadows farewell, Jonathan inched through the crowd, determination merging with a growing desperation. "Jonathan!" Sarah's voice danced through the air at that moment, but it fell softly on his ears like raindrops splattering against stone. "Join us." She beckoned him with an inviting gesture, her face flushed with joy. Swallowing, he replied, "Sarah, But the words came stilted, as if caught in a vice. How could he articulate what he felt without sounding overbearing? "I think we should talk," he said finally, the uncertainty weaving through his tone. "Not now, John." She smiled, evading him for a moment longer, the glint of the dance floor reflecting the unbroken energies around her. "We're celebrating. Look, Tyler's showing me some old dance steps, please." Disappointment washed over him. "I don't want to just stand on the sidelines," he urged, the lump in his throat a reminder he wasn't ready to fight. "I want to celebrate with you, together." "Okay, yes." Sarah agreed, eyes brightening as she spun back toward Tyler, her laughter once more filling the air. And there it was, their connection seemingly solid yet reeling in the undercurrents of chaos. A moment stretched, a heartbeat flattened in time as Sarah returned to Tyler's easy companion. The air felt sharp around Jonathan. The confidence visions of their evenings together and stolen moments dwindled into ghost-like regrets. He could feel the eyes of the room pointedly glued to them, weaving a web of tension around their fragile reunion. Why couldn't she see him? Jonathan's insides nodded. The audible beat of his heart was deafening against the frustration bubbling just beneath his skin, a slow ember turning into fire. Breathlessly, he watched agony constricting deeper as laughter echoed softly but painfully in his ears. As the dance continued, he took a step back, an unwilling uncoupling that sent chills spiraling through him. The fine line between celebration and humiliation had never felt so delicate, so painfully real. In that moment of reprieve before completing his pivot, he spotted a young server beneath the glimmer of pendant lights, a brief shimmering glimpse of concern flickering in her eyes. Instinctively, Jonathan searched for the source of her unease. They all sensed it, an undercurrent kissed with the scent of impending rupture. And so he prepared himself amidst the blaring chirp of joyous laughter and clanging glasses, a prelude to chaos instead of harmony. Could he confront Sarah? Should he speak up about the questions swelling like flames licking at the edges of their night? The earlier resolve crumbled amidst overheated joy, all the while dissolving the essence of who they were. With each passing moment, it became undeniably clear to Jonathan the cost of his silence would be far too great. Trapped in the treachery of his own heart, an unyielding realization loomed. A storm was brewing just beyond their laughter, and he could not stand still for much longer. Love demanded action, and fear had already woven its tangled roots. Could he endure this turmoil and protect what lay within the depths? As the cacophony of chatter and music enveloped him, I felt as if I were gasping for air in a crowded room. Sarah, adorned in her shimmering gown, sashayed across the dance floor, her laughter entwined with Tyler's deep, booming voice, creating a dissonance that struck me like a knife. It was disorienting, the way her joy resonated with the entire room, illuminating the faces around her, while I felt entombed within my own growing shadows. Memories unfurled, dragging me down a spiral of nostalgia. Long nights spent sharing stories over wine, laughter echoing off the walls of our home, tender moments by candlelight that now felt like distant echoes fading into oblivion. How had we drifted to this precarious ledge? They spun among the jubilant crowd, the twirling, the laughter, a living picture of freedom, unencumbered by the baggage I carried in my heart. With every giggle shared between them, the image of my wife felt like a brittle glass sculpture, beautiful yet on the verge of shattering. An icy grip tightened around my chest, suffocating and relentless, as I wrestled with the looming fear that this night would mark the beginning of our unraveling. When Sarah approached me, her face alight with happiness, it only magnified my inner turmoil. "You look like you're having fun," I said, the words spilling from my lips like water from a cracked vessel, half-hearted, almost mechanical. I plastered on a smile that felt hollow, desperately trying to mask my swirling emotions. "Oh, Jonathan, you've got to join us," she exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious yet painfully misplaced. "Tyler is just the most charming. Dance with us." The request struck me like a slap. I didn't belong in that moment. Part of me craved to be swept away in her unrestrained joy, while another felt the bitter sting of betrayal coursing through my veins. "I think I would rather not," I replied, forcing a chuckle that felt more like an attempt to defuse the tension pulling taut between us. "Why don't you have fun with your friend?" The joy that radiated from her faltered, her eyes clouding over as the laughter around us began to dissipate. "You can't be serious." "I'd like you to try and enjoy yourself a little," she argued, the irritation in her voice barely masking the disappointment hanging heavily in the air. Before I could respond, Tyler loomed beside us, an effortless smirk playing on his lips as he slid an arm around Sarah's waist, an intimacy that felt far too familiar. "Hey, man, relax. We're just having some fun," he drawled, that smoothness of his voice oozing arrogance. My heart sank, an anchor pulling me deeper into a chasm of uncertainty and resentment. I felt the rage surge from my chest to my throat, a primal instinct rising within me. "I think it would be better if you both keep your distance," I managed, feeling the rawness of my voice, surprised at how firm it had become, despite the tremors threaded through it. "Oh, come on, you're making a scene," Tyler chuckled, his casual dismissal infuriating. Those words clung to the air, daring me to respond, to challenge him. The underlying tension between the three of us teetered on a razor's edge, and I gripped my resolve, clenching my fists at my sides. "Scene," I echoed, disbelief coating my words. "You don't think this is anything but a scene? You've invaded our lives. You're in my marriage." Okay, Sarah said, her voice rising to cut through the tension. "That's enough. Jonathan, please." I turned toward her, desperate for her acknowledgement, my eyes pleading. "Do you not see it? I've watched you happy, feeling so free with him while I stand here like a ghost from your past, relegated to the sidelines. What is it, Sarah? Am I not enough?" My voice cracked at the last word, unraveling the armor I had tried to keep intact. "Don't say that," she replied, the shock in her eyes painful to witness. "It's not like that. Tyler's just—" "Just what?" "A friend. Someone who makes you smile." I shot back, feeling the words slip from my mouth like venom. "You know how painful it is to look at you both? You're smiling, and I'm standing here, feeling like a fool." The air thickened with unsaid emotions, and Sarah's face transformed, embarrassment staining her cheeks as her smile faltered. "I wanted to have a good time, and I thought you'd understand. I didn't mean for this to happen." My heart ached, realizing the rift that had opened between us was not merely about Tyler. It was about the unspoken wishes and fears we had tucked away beneath our routines. "You didn't mean for what to happen, Sarah," I demanded, desperation creeping into my tone as I struggled against the storm brewing within. "You didn't mean to smile with him? To enjoy your night with someone who's not me? Because it feels like you've pushed me away, like you're seeking something that I can't give you." "I just wanted to escape the monotony for one night," she confessed, her tone softening, laced with vulnerability. "This job you work, the weight of expectations, it can be so heavy. I wanted to remember how it feels to be light." Each word tumbled over me like a cascading waterfall, flooding my senses, and I felt the raw truth of her feelings cut through the bitterness that had fogged my heart. But at what cost? "You know, we can find that light together, don't you?" "Jonathan, you have to see it from my perspective," she pleaded earnestly, twisting her hands together. "I love you, but sometimes I just want some levity, some excitement that doesn't consist of dinner after dinner trying to best each other's work stress." In that moment, I saw the reality of our marriage reflected in her eyes, how our roles had morphed into a guarded dance of responsibility. There was no malice in her intentions, just an unyielding desire to be seen and cherished, even as my own insecurities clashed violently against the reality of her truth. It hurt that she felt lost enough to seek fulfillment elsewhere, but what did that say about me? "Then let's talk about it," I urged, desperation turning into a flicker of hope, the path ahead feeling both daunting and freeing. "You and I, together, can fight this feeling of monotony. Let's carve out time, explore new hobbies, take risks. But promise me, no more of this." I gestured wildly toward Tyler, whose smirk faded as he took a step back, sensing the shifting energy. "Promise that we navigate this together?" The sincerity in my voice cut through the haze, and Sarah took a breath, her eyes brimming with emotion. "I promise," she whispered, sincerity threading through her tone. As her gaze fixed upon me, something shifted. The air between us no longer felt like a battlefield but a balm, soothing the inflamed wounds that had festered for too long. But as I took a step closer, determined to bridge the distance of hurt, Tyler's voice interrupted again, slathered in mockery. "Hey, look at this. The husband's finally stepping up. You know, I was just trying to lighten the mood." I pivoted sharply, feeling the heat of the moment spike again. "And you're failing terribly. It's pathetic." The tension crackled. Every guest in the vicinity held their breath, waiting for the explosion. But the gravity of my love for Sarah tethered me, urging patience, fueled by the realization that we were fighting not just for ourselves, but the threads that stitched our lives together. I couldn't let Tyler unravel us completely, not tonight, not ever. And there we stood, my heart racing, the weight of uncertainty still pressing down, but embers of hope swirling in the air. The night felt fragile, the atmosphere shifting. Could we sew the fabric of our marriage back together? Or would the threads become frayed beyond repair? As the gala continued, I slipped away from the main ballroom, needing air, distance from the curious glances that followed me like predators. The laughter and music faded behind me, replaced by the soft crunch of gravel underfoot as I stepped into the cool night air. It felt like stepping out of a dream, chaotic, vibrant, but somehow unbearably suffocating. I leaned against a stone pillar, the coolness grounding me, trying to gather my thoughts while my heart raced like the frantic rhythm of a drum. The twinkling lights of the courtyard flickered like stars trapped on earth, illuminating the cobblestone path I paced along. Each step felt heavier than the last, charged with a sense of foreboding. What had happened to the carefree young couple Sarah and I once were? In my mind, I revisited moments of laughter, playful teasing, the thrilling spark of our early loves, when everything felt like a celebration of life rather than a series of compartmentalized duties. Now, I felt like a ghost haunting the edges of her joy, invisible yet acutely aware of every spark of connection she shared with him. Minutes later, as if pulled by some magnetic force, my gaze shifted back toward the entrance of the ballroom just in time to spot Sarah leaving, making her way toward the restrooms. The urgency in her stride felt unnerving, almost as if she were fleeing a scene I desperately wanted to comprehend. My heart flipped at the sight, pride woven into her gait, yet a flicker of defiance danced in her eyes. I had to follow her. I had to know what was happening. There was a compulsion stronger than the whirlwind within me, dragging me toward the truth. Yet, as I stepped forward, the crowd swelled, and I found myself caught in the orbit of Tyler and his entourage, who flitted around him like moths to a flame. Their laughter washed over me, a cacophony of mirth that felt mocking amidst my internal quake. The swell of anger twisted in my gut, pressing against the surface of my resolve. "Don't be rude, man." "Maybe let them be." One of Tyler's buddies snickered, surveying me with a glance that seemed to contain its own brand of amusement. Dismissive. My instincts kicked in, fierce and protective, igniting something deep within that recalled high-stakes negotiations filled with smoke and mirrors. "Just let me through," I asserted, the clipped tone of my voice reflecting the tension draining away any pretense of courtesy. For agonizing seconds, all eyes turned toward me, a bright spotlight on my vulnerability and rage. I felt the weight of disbelief slam into my chest. How had I arrived at this moment? The visceral need to confront both the man before me and the specter of my own insecurities surged through me. "Let me through," I repeated, firm and resolute. Tyler's buddy shrugged, smirking as I navigated the throng that felt like rushing waters, a force desperately trying to wash me away. As I shoved my way through the crowd, driven by need and desperation, I finally caught sight of Sarah again. She lingered near the entrance, her expression painting a confusing landscape of confusion, her shoulders slightly hunched as if bracing against an unseen weight. A wave of relief washed over me, but pain quickly tainted it when I read the mixture of emotions on her face. Confusion and cautious resolve had become her armor. "John, what is it?" she asked, crossing her arms protectively, shielding herself from whatever storm was brewing. The air thickened with unspoken questions, and my heart ached with the urgency to voice everything tumbling around in my head. "What's happening?" I rushed out. "Why do you need to dance with him? Why are you here, looking at me as if I'm the intruder?" My words tumbled out, sharp as glass shards, littering the air between us with jagged honesty. She stared at me, her eyes widening at my vehemence. "What do you mean? We were just had a good time?" I interjected bitterly, letting anger fuel the chaos surrounding my resolve. "You mean smiling at him, laughing while I stood alone? You expect me to stand by as if seeing you both dance doesn't feel like a punch to the gut?" Her expression flickered from surprise to irritation, and I could see every defense she was bracing within. "Stop it. You're being ridiculous," she replied, frustration spilling out, an arm suddenly flinging wide in exasperation. "You're making something out of nothing. I wanted to have fun, to feel free. Why can't you understand that?" My chest tightened further with each word she said. "Free? With him?" The words slipped out like poison. "You know how that feels, don't you? It feels like you're reaching for something outside our marriage, something we have crafted together over years." She looked hurt, truly hurt, and it twisted deeper than I had anticipated. "You don't get it, Jonathan. Everything can't always be heavy and serious." Her voice broke slightly, the vulnerability unraveling her determination for a moment. "Can't you see that I just wanted to find a joy that wouldn't crumble under the weight of our work and life?" A silence hung between us then, heavy like a storm cloud, each word layered with significance and strife, pulsating with the reality of our emotions. I took a step back, letting her words sink in. Did she truly mean it? I failed to notice the grinding weight of life impinging on her happiness, her joy. I had been so obsessed with guarding our relationship, I hadn't realized how perilously fragile it had become. "But you didn't come to me. You sought it with him," I murmured, my voice losing that sharp edge, infused now with a deep-seated longing. "I didn't mean for this to happen," Sarah began, her tone shifting as she lowered her gaze, searching for words. "I thought you understood that sometimes I need." "Need what?" I pressed, my impatience bubbling inside. "Need to feel desired? Need to escape into thin air? We're in this together." It struck me as soon as the words left my mouth how true that was. I was so busy wrestling with anger and hurt that I'd overlooked the fundamental truth. We were both aching for connection. "I need to have moments where I'm just, well, me," she confessed, her voice softer now, a hint of vulnerability unfurling like a flower. "Without the responsibility of always being John's wife or the organizer." That's all I wanted. A moment to breathe, and there it was, raw and unfiltered. In her admission, I saw not just her struggle, but my own as well. How easily we could lose ourselves in the rush of expectations, professional demands, the simple rhythm of daily life. For a brief flicker, I envisioned a new path ahead, a way to share this burden and rediscover lightness in each other again. But would she be willing to navigate this with me, unearthing joy instead of retreating deeper into shadows? I felt the tide of desire rise within me, wishing to reach out and comfort her, maybe even embrace her so we could reclaim our spark. Let's talk about this, I offered, the flicker of hope igniting between us. We can fix our fumble, can't we? Rediscover what brings us joy without relying on anyone else. But before she could respond, Tyler's voice echoed from behind, harsh against the tension that had begun to ease. Oh, look at this. The husband's finally stepping up. You know, I was just trying to lighten the mood. I pivoted sharply, fixing my eyes on him, the annoyance surging like steam from a well. And you think your lightning is welcome here? Because, believe me, it isn't. My voice gained strength, reverberating through the cool night air. The tension flicked back up, electric and palatable, as I sensed the crowd's eyes shifting toward us. Every moment shattered like fragile glass, and a landscape of confrontation morphed before me. Would this end our discussion, our hopes of reconnection? Or could we both defy him together? Behind me, I felt Sarah's presence, steady and sure. She would not allow this moment to shatter our bridge of understanding. That instilled enough strength within me to confront whatever remained precarious in the shadows of my heart. Together, we would reclaim our narrative. I was determined to let nothing stand in our way. Where are you going, Sarah? The accusation laced into my voice felt like a hammer striking steel, the sound reverberating painfully between us. Confusion twisted in her eyes like a knotted rope, and I wondered momentarily if she could truly grasp the tempest that had been brewing in my chest. Just to freshen up. Why are you following me? She replied, her voice edged with irritation. That frustration flickered in her charismatic elegance, but it only fueled my internal storm. I could feel the unspoken insecurities rise, swirling around like a dark mist, tightening around my throat. Something doesn't feel right, I said, stepping closer to her as if the physical proximity could somehow bridge the chasm that had formed between us. The weight of my words hung in the air, pulsating with urgency. It's not just dancing anymore. There's something happening here, isn't there? Her eyes shimmered with a mix of exasperation and hurt, a combination that twisted my stomach. You're being paranoid, Jonathan, she snapped, a lime wedge of indignation slicing through the tension. Paranoid? I nearly scoffed. Maybe I was, but something primal within me had awakened, a wellspring of jealousy and fear. I saw the way he looked at you. The accusation slipped out, carrying a sharper edge than intended. How you looked at him. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, wrapping around us like a shroud. I searched her face for any semblance of clarity. All I found was a tempest brewing behind her facade, hurt and confusion coiling around my fraying emotions. For a fleeting moment, the soft glow of the moonlight seemed to mock me, highlighting the cracks in what I had believed to be an infallible love. Sarah's expression twisted under the weight of my words. You can't seriously believe I want him, can you? You're better than this, Jonathan. You're the one I love. My chest tightened. I could feel how her words blossomed with an intent I should have recognized long ago. But you. I allowed myself to enjoy the night. It's not a crime, she interjected, her voice taut against the rising tide of emotions. We work hard, and I wanted to have fun with him. The incredulity in my voice pushed back against her defiance, rattling the fragile structures we'd built over the years. I was floundering in the depths of confusion, caught between the gravity of my disbelief and the nebulous fog of rejection that she'd inadvertently cast upon me. Her exhale hovered in the air like smoke dissipating, heavy with frustration, yet laden with a hint of regret. I just wanted to feel free. You know how life can get boring, and Tyler's just different. Different. I repeated incredulously, as if the very word itself reeked of danger and deception. He's dangerous, Sarah. The statement echoed in the darkness like a thunderclap, restoring the closeness of our emotional confrontation, yet thickening the air with uncertainty. Dangerous, she echoed incredulously, but I could see how my words hit a nerve. What does that even mean? Just because he can make people laugh? Laughing at you or with you? My frustration bloomed like a wildflower in barren ground, vibrant yet savage. Do you understand how this sounds? Can you even fathom how it feels to watch you, my wife, dancing with a man who doesn't have the responsibility of your heart? The flush crept up her neck, and for a moment, she appeared vulnerable, stripped bare of her defenses. This isn't just about him, Jonathan. It's about me, about us. You can't always try to fit every piece of my heart into a box labeled marriage. What do you want me to do? I shot back, caught between hurt and a desperate need to push back the tide of confusion crashing into our lives. Call you cheerful and ignore what's happening right in front of my eyes? The silence deepened, a suffocating weight that pressed heavily upon us. A lump formed in my throat at her accusations, and my own tangled feelings, fear mixing with jealousy, had birthed a creature of its own. Do you even realize how much I love you? The words poured from her in a soft murmur, trembling fingers touching her chest over her heart, an action revealing both vulnerability and resolve. This chaos does not negate the years we've built. Just because I decided to have fun doesn't mean I don't love you. She paused, tearing her gaze away from me, the shadows around us revealing an unfamiliar fragility, one I craved but hadn't expected. I need to find joy outside of being tied to someone else's expectations, she spoke softly, and I began to deeply understand the shadows that strip away clarity in relationships. Joy? Do you mean freedom to flirt or to escape? My voice trembled, the weight of her gaze rooting me to that spot, and the burden of my emotions drawing dangerously close. Liberation from monotony, she clarified, the hint of desperation breaking through. The routines I love have turned comfortable, dull. You know, I'm lost in the daily grind. Don't you remember? We used to find adventure in the little things. Her words struck something inside, a pulse of nostalgia, a reawakening of shared moments filled with laughter and levity that seemed so distant after years of expectations and roles we meticulously inhabited. Those were beautiful moments, Sarah, I said, softness returning to my tone as I hovered on the threshold of understanding her heartaches and aspirations. But can you really not find what we once had with me? I don't know, she cried out, exasperation softened by sincerity. I don't want to lose what makes us us, but it feels like I've been drifting. I want to breathe again, to feel alive, even if it's fleeting. Her voice trembled with longing, and the distance between our hearts crumbled, giving rise to the greed of reconnection. Silence lingered, ebbing and flowing, and yet a new understanding flickered in her gaze, a tenderness reminiscent of the affection we once celebrated. But is that joy found in Tyler? The question hung between us as heavy as the night air, embers of our connection igniting anew. But the flicker of potential warmth seemed blocked by a prism of pain. He doesn't have to mean anything to me, she began, her voice fragile. But she trailed off, frustration bubbling back to the surface. He gave me a glimpse of what fun used to feel like. I'm not looking for him for anything permanent. I just wanted a reminder of who I used to be. By flirting with danger, I pressed, the urgency spilling through my voice. It wasn't supposed to go that far, she cried back, pain flaring in those hazel depths. I never meant to hurt you. Can't you see that all of this is just as she was about to reel her emotions back, a voice sliced through the tension, a barbed whisper that carried a mocking lilt. Oh, look at this. The husband's finally stepping up. You know, I was just trying to lighten the mood. Tyler's smug grin emerged from the shadows, the flickering lights catching the arrogance in his feature. It filled me with a surge of loathing I had never quite experienced before. In that moment, my heart thudded heavily against my ribs, a mixture of indignation and disgust rising to the surface. Lighten the mood? I echoed, my spine stiffening in response, the breathless tension between Sarah and me suffocating under the weight of his presence. Don't you realize we're trying to resolve something here? Resolve. Tyler's laughter cut jagged through the air, teasing and taunting. He stepped closer, brushing Sarah's arm as if I wasn't even present. Just having a little fun, man. Can a guy have fun with his friends? The threatening undertone of his words slithered through the designated space of our confrontation and settled deep in my gut. I leaned toward him, anger embodying every part of me. It's not just about you and your form of fun, and you're clearly not seeing the damage you've already inflicted on Sarah. For a moment, our eyes met, and I felt waves of disbelief wash over me, the sheer audacity of his attitude igniting something more furious in my inside, something that begged to reclaim the essence of what we'd built together. I could feel Sarah's presence at my side, steady yet anxious, a reminder of all that was slipping through our fingers. The heat of my anger melded with the urgency to protect her, to help her see the truth of the moment, a truth that demanded to be acknowledged, that whispered for redemption amid chaos. Let's go. No. I turned to Sarah, my voice steady, a rare clarity emerging. There was strength in unity, I realized. If relationships could weather the storms of betrayal, I had to believe that we too could combat whatever shadows loomed. As we stepped away from each other, her eyes flickering between the two of us, I felt the restless tide begin to shift, ready to carry us toward a deeper understanding of what we could become. I hoped, with every ounce of conviction within me, that we could forge a path back, not just to what we once had, but to something new, something stronger. Let's go. No. The words escaped my mouth, an audible lifeline tossed over the swirling sea of confusion and resentment. I turned toward Sarah, my heart racing as I searched her face for an echo of understanding, for any sign that she would choose to follow me back from this precipice of betrayal. Her hesitation felt like ice forming in my chest. "Jonathan, wait," she implored, her breath catching slightly. "Can't we just talk about this?" The weight of my frustration bore down upon me, mixing oddly with the flicker of hope that had sparked between us only moments earlier. "What's there to talk about?" "You know what he represents, Sarah," I said, frustration lacing my tone. "This isn't just a harmless dalliance. It's an emotional minefield." The cut of Tyler's laughter lingered like a bitter taste in my mouth, an unwelcome intrusion as I watched Sarah's conflict play out on her face. It was as though I could almost see the battle within her, the desire to reclaim her sense of freedom clashing against the reality of the love we'd built together. "Jonathan," she began again, her voice softening, but I could see how her uncertainty simmered. "I don't want to hurt you. I wanted to feel alive, to feel desired. But Tyler makes it so easy." "That ease comes with a price," I interrupted, my words sharper than I anticipated. "What do you think happens when you indulge in that kind of reckless abandonment? You risk everything we've built." As I unleashed my frustration, the world around us faded into a haze of colors and sounds. Shadows danced along the edges of the ballroom, flickering candlelight reflecting the turmoil in my heart. I could feel the pulse of the music behind us, but it became a distant echo, overshadowed by the insistent beat of our confrontation. "Tyler doesn't know you like I do," I pressed, unable to hold back the bitter truth any longer. "He doesn't see the beauty in your complexities. He only wants the surface-level thrill." The realization hit me harder than I expected, tightening the grip of insecurity around me. "Isn't that what you wanted to escape from?" Her face paled, and for a moment she looked as if my words had stripped her bare, leaving nothing behind but raw vulnerability. "No, that's not fair," she protested, her voice steadying. "You can't put that all on me, Jonathan. I never meant for it to come to this." "No," I murmured, my voice deflating. "But your need to break the routine, can you see how it can spiral into something uncontrollable?" The weight of my own words felt heavy, anchoring me deep in the turmoil that festered at the core of our union. "I thought I'd find joy." "What's wrong with that?" she countered, defiance creeping back into her tone, though I could also see the glimmer of sadness in her eyes. "Am I meant to be content with just being your wife? Is that not enough, Jonathan?" The collision of her words ricocheted in my mind, hurling me back into memories of why I fell in love with her in the first place. We'd made promises, and where we once savored the little moments, the laughter, and the unexpected adventures, we now meandered through the monotonous routine of daily life. I had let work consume me, leaving little room for the spark that once flourished between us. "I'm sorry if I've made you feel that way." "It was never my intention," I confessed, my voice filled with genuine remorse. "But I need to know you think about what we stand to lose." "I can't. I won't let you slip away." Sarah's gaze softened as she reached for my hand, a touch, a gentle reminder of the moments we once cherished. "I don't want to lose us either, Jonathan," she whispered, her voice breaking. "But I feel so lost." The ache of her vulnerability pierced through my frustration, shattering the defenses I had built around my heart. I could sense the tide shifting, the weight of our conflict giving way to a burgeoning understanding of our pain. As our fingers intertwined, I could feel the tremor in her hand mirroring my own conflicted emotions. "Maybe we need to rediscover each other," I suggested, the thought grounded in the quiet urgency of her yearning. "Let's take a step back, even if it means finding joy outside of the normal. Ensure we're moving forward, not just for the sake of the past." Her expression flickered, a fusion of relief and uncertainty drawing lines across her brow. What if that's what I was hoping to find tonight? She half laughed, the tension breaking slightly. Then let's uncover it together, I offered, my heart swelling with conviction. Let's redefine what adventure means for us. The moment hung heavily in the air, an uncharted path beckoning just beyond our reach. How do we even begin? She asked. The sparkle of hope stirred her eyes, revitalizing the conversation. Let's find the things we've always loved, what made us breathe and laugh together. I took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of possibility, thaw the chill of our earlier conflict. Remember when we used to create a list of bucket list moments? We should start fresh with that. A smile cautiously crept onto her lips, illuminating my world like the dawn's first light. I remember those days. It felt so alive. Exactly, I said, the memories filling my heart with a newfound sense of connection. Let's release the pressures of expectation and discover what it means to have fun in this life, without boundaries. Like exploring the world, she suggested, her voice teetering between excitement and apprehension. Why not? I leaned closer, fueled by that flicker of hope. Let's make a pact, not to run away, but to reclaim who we are, who we can be, together. In that moment, the threat of Tyler and the pain of betrayal began to fade, replaced by the drive of mutual understanding. We were two storm-tossed souls navigating an island of uncertainty, slowly yielding cells of possibility to each other's authenticity. I felt the ground beneath us shift. For the first time in what seemed an eternity, the inertia that had once pulled us apart began to lift. As we turned to face the steady embrace of the gala's festivities, a renewed sense of purpose coursed between us. Clarity emerged from within the chaos as I drew Sarah into an embrace, a tether binding us as we shored up the remnants of our past. Well, what do you say we go back in there? I whispered into her ear, feeling the gentle curve of her smile against my heart. Together, she echoed, her breath light on my skin, pulsating with the promise of all that lay ahead, the reawakening of not just our love, but of ourselves. With that unspoken agreement, we released the confines of the night, stepping back into the vibrant reality of the gala, hands intertwined with purpose. The world spun around us, but with every heartbeat, I felt an inkling of hope. And for the first time since the shadows threatened to consume us, I realized the journey of redemption would be ours to navigate, together. Just as the tension between us hinted at resolution, the sound of the ballroom beckoned us back, a seductive murmur of laughter and music now stark against our fraying emotions. Sarah's brow furrowed, and her eyes dropped to the floor momentarily. We can't just leave it like this. If I don't join Tyler, it'll look like I'm running away. Her voice wavered, encapsulating the unease that displaced even the faintest hopes of reconciliation. The ground felt as if it shifted beneath me, swirling with uncertainty. You'd rather dance with him than figure this out with me? The words tumbled from my lips sharper than I intended, each syllable prickling with a raw edge of desperation. The thought alone chipped at my resolve, tearing at the fabric of our union, and I was flooded with emotions too complex to navigate: betrayal, hurt, fear, and the flickering prospect of love. No, she cried, her gaze locking onto mine, fierce and filled with an intensity that spoke of her own struggles. Jonathan, I want to resolve this too. I need to say what's on my heart. The softness of her voice crashed against the silence hanging between us, seeking to bridge the chasm that threatened to swallow us whole. Yet my silence, punctuated by a quickened heartbeat, echoed louder than her pleading words. With a desperate need to grasp what remained, I swallowed hard as we stepped back into the ballroom, a vibrant tapestry of color, laughter, and clinking glasses, and I felt the weight of the evening crushing against my resolve. I could see Tyler effortlessly navigating the throng, laughter coiling around him like an inviting flame, oblivious to the torments he stirred. As we crossed the threshold into the bright glimmer of the party, the warmth of the atmosphere tried to wash over me, but instead it left the bitterness of uncertainty lingering on my tongue. Flickering candlelight illuminated each face around us, but they blurred in my mind, pieces of a dissonant orchestra playing a tune I both recognized and resented. As I held Sarah's hand tightly, I felt as if I were grappling for control of my own unraveling heart. Tyler, Sarah called, her voice carrying over the crowded space, piercing through the revelry. The sound seemed to freeze the moment, and my stomach twisted at the acknowledgement of his looming presence, an unwanted specter in our fragile reconciliation. He turned toward us, that trademark charm affixed in place, yet for the first time, I noticed how effortless his laughter seemed to spill into the atmosphere, engulfing everything in its seductive pull. Would you mind if I just have a moment? Jonathan, standing resolutely at her side, felt the weight of his heart draw downward. Tyler raised an eyebrow, both surprised and entertained, as he ambled toward us, his confidence a cloak draped over him. Of course, Sarah. What's on your mind? I could feel the waves of nervous energy emanating from Sarah, her posture becoming rigid beneath the weight of Tyler's charisma. I think it's best if you respect my marriage and back off, she replied, her voice shaky but resolute, unveiling a quiet strength that had remained dormant far too long. For an instant, the room plunged into silence, eyes wide and breaths held, whether in shock or judgment, I couldn't tell. Even Tyler's amused grin waned for the briefest moment, his surprise evident. Then, like a skillful magician recovering from an initial misstep, he laughed, the sound light and imposing all at once. Relax, Sarah. No harm intended. You're too uptight. He leaned back slightly, exaggerated amusement glinting in his eyes as he dismissed her concern. We were just having a little fun. I'm sure it was all fun. My voice rose, a defiant crescendo invoking the air thick with shared tension. But you should know there's nothing funny about disrespecting vows. Adamant whispers rippled through our audience, friends and acquaintances pulling closer, leaning in for the evolving drama. Sarah and I shared a fleeting eye contact, a moment suspended in time where betrayal morphed into unity, and for the first time, we stood unwavering against the wave of uncertainty that sought to tear us apart. You're content to play games at the cost of others. I fired back, anger clawing at the edges of my already fraying patience. I won't allow that. The momentum spiraled, pushing Tyler out of balance. It's not like she's chained to you. This is ridiculous. The lilt in his voice dripped with condescension, and the surge of contempt propelled me forward. I could see the flush in Sarah's cheeks, the uncertainty and anguish battling with her impassioned defenses. Yet in that bright, bustling atmosphere, feeling raw and exposed, Tyler's bravado faded, revealing his vulnerability. With palpable tension hanging heavy in the air, I felt Sarah's hand tremble within mine, her willingness to confront engaging steadily against his goading. Don't you see? Sarah called over to Tyler, her voice filled with a fierce determination, emboldened by the strength she had found. What you label as fun can unravel lives. I can't for the sake of Jonathan and our marriage. It's not a game. The validation pierced through the air, an acknowledgement that roared with acceptance and resilience. Tyler faltered, momentarily unprepared for the direct confrontation, his bravado dimming for an instant like a candle winking out against a sudden gust of wind. To everyone witnessing, I could see it, the first seeds of doubt settling in friendly eyes fixed on Tyler's now faltering facade. The crowd shifted as they absorbed the exchange, understanding the emotions surging like an electric current, the invitation transforming into a battle line. Of course, it is not like this matters. Everyone needs exhilarating moments occasionally, he said, albeit with less conviction than before. But such earnestness, really? Not everyone acts so rigidly. The phrases tumbled out of him limp. He tried to grasp control of the enormity unraveling around him. Actors caught in a pointed drama. We were thrust back into the spotlight, and for all of us, the stakes escalated. I leaned closer to Sarah, reclaiming my edge, embers igniting in my core. You represent danger, Tyler, not freedom. And I am not about to watch my marriage slip into shadows, I stated quietly but firmly, another bind layering upon our connection, unwavering against the tide that sought to mar our clarity. As tensions rose, the atmosphere crackled, stifled breaths punctuating the uncertainty swirling within. I couldn't run away from this, neither could I retreat from the reality I was contending with. In that moment, I felt a shift that beckoned a hauntingly fragile awareness. As we stood united, it was as if we briefly ascended above the tumult, and then I caught her eye once again. Wrapped in the very fabric of our pain, we formed a barrier, an expressionless guard around our hearts, an iron wall reinforced by love. This was a crucible, forged anew, brewing possibilities that could either unite us further or drive a wedge deeper. With unwavering resolve in the face of Tyler's challenge, I planted my feet steady against the chaos. It was no longer just about a confrontation, it was about us. Together. Here, right now, on the precipice of something transformative amidst the sparkle of that opulent ballroom, Sarah and I began to reclaim ourselves, not just from each other, but from the rift that threatened to dissolve our bond entirely. Hope surged through me, igniting an exhilarating warmth. Let's move forward. Let's confront this together, I said quietly, the weight of my own vulnerability holding fast. Together, she echoed, her quiet voice resonating in the space between us, mirrored with a determined brightness. In that moment, the shadows of doubt faded, the light illuminating the path ahead urged us onward. Disempowering the dance of deception, we had begun to forge a way back, not merely to who we once were but toward who we could be. The drive home was wrapped in a heavy silence, one that echoed the unspoken words and emotions of our confrontation, felt thick and suffocating in the dim light of the vehicle. The cool air rushed in through the vents, providing a fleeting sense of refreshment, but the atmosphere inside felt dense, an amalgamation of anxiety, anger, and an ember of hope simmering just beneath the surface. The cool glow of streetlights flickered over Sarah's face, illuminating the mixture of uncertainty and introspection. I glanced at her, my heart heavy with the weight of everything left unaddressed. "You okay?" I asked, my voice a low murmur, hesitant yet filled with concern. She sighed deeply, her fingers still fidgeting with the hem of her dress, as if it could ground her in this turbulent sea of emotions. "I don't know," she admitted, the honesty in her voice both refreshing and painful. "I feel conflicted. I care about you, John. I want to make this work, but part of me wanted to break free tonight to remember who I used to be." Her vulnerability struck me, sending a rush of empathy coursing through my veins. It was a confession that echoed my own realization. How often had I been so wrapped in my career that I failed to nurture what made us both feel alive? "I get it. I really do. I've been so focused on work that I neglected to see what was happening with us," I replied carefully, my tone weighted with regret. Suddenly, an image of Tyler invaded my thoughts, toxic and menacing, contrasting sharply against the tenderness I felt for Sarah. "But you need to let me into that part of your life. I can't combat shadows with ignorance." She turned to me then, her eyes searching, as if she were looking for a lifeline. "And I need you to be open with me, John. I can't be the only one fighting here. You've been so guarded about your work, about everything. We both have to show each other what we need. Only then can we truly build something solid." I swallowed hard, the reality of her words barreling through my heart like a freight train, aligning so vividly with my own revelation. "You're right," I responded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over me. "I've kept so much of myself buried in that office. It's time I partnered with you instead of living parallel lives, centered around ambition instead of connection. I want us to really talk about our goals, our desires, our dreams. Not just as an escape from reality, but genuinely," Sarah said. Her sincerity washed over me like a soothing balm, encouraging me to delve deeper into my own vulnerabilities. I could feel the walls surrounding my heart begin to crumble, brick by brick. As we made our way through the city streets, the hum of the engine became the background score to our unfolding emotional landscape. The towering buildings loomed like shadows around us, silhouetting our clandestine conversation, their imposing structures a poignant reminder of the barriers we had allowed to build between us. "Let's go out to dinner tomorrow. Just you and me. No work talk, just us," I proposed, my heart quickening at the thought. "We can pick a place we love or somewhere new. Something to shake off the weight of tonight." A smile peeked through the cracks of our tension. "That sounds nice. I'd like that," Sarah replied softly. Her expression softened, surrendering to the promise that we were embarking on a fresh path together. With the promise of a new beginning spinning in the air between us, we arrived home. The shadows of the night whispered uncertain greetings, and the front door creaked open to reveal the sanctuary we had both cherished yet wrestled with, the home we had built together. It felt both familiar and foreign, a space now charged with unarticulated emotions that could no longer be contained within the walls. As I took off my coat and hung it in the hallway, I sensed Sarah standing behind me, tension coiling tightly in her shoulders. She was perhaps as nervous as I was about traversing the next leg of this journey. I turned to face her, hoping to offer some reassurance, a promise that we would navigate this together. "Sarah," I started, but I paused, searching for the right words. How do you encapsulate the intricacies of a fractured love in just a few syllables? The trust shattered, the struggle to regain confidence, and yet the undeniable desire to mend what is broken. "Can we start right now?" she asked, hesitance threading through her voice but tinged with a spark of courage. "Of course," I replied, earnestness infusing my tone. "What do you have in mind?" I braced myself to hear her heart. "Let's talk openly," she replied, her voice gaining strength as if she were reclaiming ground in this conversation. "I need to know about that side of you, the you that's buried under spreadsheets and strategies." I want to understand your dreams, your aspirations. Not just for work, but for us. Her earnest request ignited something deep within me, a desire for transparency I had kept hidden for too long. It was now time to unveil the layers I had once shielded. I've been working on this project for a major merger. I mean, it's been consuming me. I believed it was what we needed, but I get it now. Balancing professional ambition with personal affection is what's critical, I shared, relief washing over me. As I spoke, I saw Sarah's body relax slightly. She leaned in closer, clearly wanting to hear more. It felt like I was gradually rediscovering a part of myself I had forgotten, the future I envisioned kicking off with someone I adored beside me. Let's take it one step at a time, I affirmed. It's us against the world, like it's always been. I'm here now. I will always choose you. Together, we'll reshape the narrative. In that dimly lit living room, brimming with unresolved feelings, the walls felt less confining and more like a canvas ready to catch the splatter of our renewed commitments. With vulnerability spilling over both our hearts, we began to reshape our understanding and acknowledge the power of love and choice. The night stretched on, the world outside continuing to spin as our hearts linked in a quiet promise, igniting the flame of hope in the aftermath of betrayal, a potent reminder that while hurt could fracture us, together we were capable of healing, of growth, and ultimately of love reborn. As we sat in the living room, the objects around us took on new significance, a testament to the life we had built together, now weighed down by recent turmoil, but still filled with possibilities. The soft glow of the table lamp cast gentle shadows on the walls, creating a cocoon of intimacy amidst the uncertainty. My heart raced as I felt the magnitude of this moment, knowing that we were standing on the precipice of something transformative if we chose to leap. Together, we can banish the shadows, I repeated, the sentiment echoing in my mind. The words carried a weight, one that resonated deeply within both of us. I watched as Sarah took a deep breath, her initial apprehension dissolving with a promise of honesty that hung in the air like a fragile thread. I don't want to more just exist alongside you, Jonathan, she said slowly, emphasis punctuating her words. I want to really live, to share our fears and our hopes, not just our responsibilities. Her gaze was steady, a testament to the vulnerability she was willing to reveal. I feel so wrapped up in my work, Sarah, that I sometimes forget to share those parts of me, I confessed, fingers intertwining with hers over the coffee table. The warmth of her touch sent flickers of reassurance coursing through me. Lately, I've poured so much of my energy into this merger, seeing it as my chance to secure our future, yet it felt like everything else was fading into the background. I understand ambition, John. I respect and admire that part of you, she reassured, her voice soothing yet firm. But I want to ride this wave of life with you, not watch from the sidelines. I want to reclaim those moments when we were more than just partners trudging through the daily grind. Her honesty was a sharp needle, cutting through the fog of the night, sewing together the unraveling seams of our connection. Me too, I admitted, swallowing hard as the gravity of our conversation pressed down on my chest. I want that sense of adventure back, the spontaneity, the joy of simply being, not just fulfilling roles. I've missed so many opportunities to create memories, and I need you to know that I'm willing to change that. Sarah's eyes softened. What if we set aside dedicated time each week? Just for us? No distractions from work or responsibility. Only the chance to reconnect and rediscover who we are together. I considered her proposal. The idea felt both exhilarating and daunting, yet in that moment I recognized its potential healing power. I'd love that. It would give us a stake in each other's lives, a commitment to shield us from storms, whether they arise from work or from elsewhere. As I spoke, I could feel the tension slowly dissipating between us, a tangible shift from fighting the darkness to welcoming the light. The obstacles that had once loomed large seemed surmountable now, diminished by our shared commitment to face them together. Maybe we should try something we've never done before. We can take a weekend to explore a new city or even seek out a class together, something fun and uncharted. Her laughter rang out, a bright contrast to the weight of our earlier discussion. A dance class? I'm not sure anyone is ready to witness that, she teased, her eyes sparkling with mischief. I assure you, I would stumble way more than you would. I chuckled, heartened by the gentle warmth returning to her demeanor. It felt like we were peeling back a canvas, layer by layer, revealing the vibrant colors that had lain buried beneath the gray gloom of our routine. In that moment, Sarah's expression shifted, shadows of discomfort melted away, unveiling a smile full of mischief and promise. So, a dance class it is. And who knows, I might just surprise you. As the conversation flowed seamlessly, a newfound ease enveloped the space between us. The burden of distrust, of betrayal, hung briefly over us like a specter, threatening. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were building a shield against it, brick by brick. With every word, there was healing. With every laugh, a thread tightened, reinforcing our commitment to one another. I took a leap forward, spilling another layer of my authentic self onto the table. I want to hear about your aspirations too, Sarah. I want to know what makes you feel alive. What dream have you shelved because life just happened? Her brow furrowed as if she hadn't considered that question in ages. I used to dream of traveling to different countries, experiencing the world through cultures, she began, her voice rich with nostalgia. But somewhere along the way, I poured so much of my energy into building this life with you that I forgot to keep my dreams alive. Then let's make your dreams a reality, I urged, my heart swelling with determination. Let's plan that trip. Go somewhere with vibrant streets, rich history, and food that talks to your soul. Experience it together. Would you really? She looked so vulnerable yet hopeful, her surprise evident. You mean it? Suddenly, optimism surged through me, an unquenchable fire. Only if you promise we'll explore it hand in hand. This journey is ours, Sarah. You deserve all the beauty the world has to offer. In that moment, the creaking walls of our fortress turned into an open space, sunlight breaking through the burdens of yesterday. Our soulful exchange, one ripe with intent and commitment, began to paint over the scars etched by betrayal. I watched as her fingers danced over the fabric of her dress, a gesture strikingly beautiful, and we found ourselves leaning toward one another. I want to take these steps with you, Jonathan. Let's live a life that holds space for both our dreams, she breathed, energized by the possibilities blossoming between us. Outside, the city settled into a gentle lull, the twinkling lights framing our sanctuary, while inside, the heartbeat synced to a rhythm promising of new beginnings. We weren't just mending what had broken. Together we were reclaiming love, one moment at a time. As we wrapped ourselves in a newfound closeness, glancing at one another through the shadows of the room, I understood this was a prelude to the journey of rediscovery ahead. Each word we exchanged became a stepping stone, a sacred promise to protect our blossoming connection from the jeopardy of the past, a chance not just to move on, but to move forward, guided by the light of our shared dreams. And for the first time in a long while, I felt hope radiating within me, illuminating the path ahead.